The Philadelphia Eagles, one of the most dominant teams last year, known with their stingy, tough defense, their physical offensive line leading to their elite run game, Jalen Hurts picking apart defenses with his amazing receiving core in A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. But after 3 straight losses and some red flags popping up earlier in the season, I think it's time to be concerned about the Philadelphia Eagles. Now you look at their last 3 games, they played tough opponents. They went on the road against a Seattle team that was very desperate, fighting for their playoff lives. Now Drew Lock led a 90-yard touchdown drive against this very questionable secondary. The week before that, they went on the road against a very good divisional opponent in the Dallas Cowboys, and Dallas absolutely beat them down 33-13. Then the week before that, they had an NFC Championship rematch of last year against the San Francisco 49ers. We were expecting a lot closer of a game, but San Fran ultimately dominated them, and that was the start of this 3-week spiral. And with this team, they've had some struggles on the offensive side of the ball that I'll address here in a minute. But really on the defensive side of the ball is where they're losing ball games and they're getting exposed. Last year, this defense was one of the best in the entire NFL. They gave up the 6th fewest points per game, and they gave up the 2nd fewest yards per game. This year, they're giving up the 7th most points per game, and they're tied for the 10th most yards per game. You look at when they play some of these high-flying offenses. Dallas dropped 33 points on them. San Francisco dropped 42 on them. Buffalo, a 34 bomb. Washington, 2 different times, dropped 31 on them. This defense has been questionable all season long, and it's really because of their secondary. This unit was one of the best in all of football last year, if not arguably the best, and this drop-off has been insane. Last year, they gave up the fewest passing yards per game at just under 180. This year, they give up the 5th most passing yards per game at 255. It's partially because Big Play Slay has been out the past few weeks, so defenses have been absolutely exposing James Bradberry, targeting him out every single play. If you go back and look at that 90-yard Seahawks drive, Drew Lock targeted James Bradberry on every single play. And I think the other big reason that this defense and secondary have been struggling this year is because of the loss of their defensive coordinator, Shane Steichen, who's now the head coach of the Indianapolis Colts. He's been absolutely tearing it up this year, and he is the leading favorite to win the Coach of the Year. I think really the defensive and offensive coordinator losses that the Eagles suffered this offseason is a massive storyline to why this team has really not been as good. On the offensive side of the ball, everybody knows that they're still super high flying, one of the best run games in the NFL, top 10 in points per game and yards per game, but it feels different this year. There's a lot more penalties, a lot more sloppiness, and really the biggest problem has been turnovers. Jalen Hurts is tied for the most turnovers in the NFL right now, and it's really hurting this Eagles team. Just going back to their Monday night loss against Seattle, Hurts only needed about 15 yards to get Jake Elliott, one of the best kickers in the NFL, in range to send this game to overtime. Instead, he tried to bomb it down the field, and Julian Love made a crazy play for the interception. Hurts, I really don't think, has been himself with new offensive coordinator Brian Johnson, and at the beginning of the season, I really didn't think this was going to hurt them as Hurts was still playing at such a high level, but with the recent turnover problems and losses, it's definitely a place of concern. Now, I'm not going to sit here and overreact too much on this Eagles squad. Everybody knows they're still a top contender in the NFC. I mean, for goodness sakes, they're 10-4, and their last 3 games are the Giants twice and the Cardinals. Most likely, they're going to win those last 3 games and move to a 13-4 season. And that's definitely nothing to scoff at. Currently, the Eagles and the Cowboys are both 10-4, but the Cowboys do have the tiebreaker for the top of the division. But I think why I'm so concerned and why so many are talking about this Eagles squad after this 3-game skid is because there's such high expectations for this team. Now, obviously, the Super Bowl slump is a real thing, but the Eagles still pretty much have the same exact roster, a young quarterback who's still developing, and many expected to take a big step, one of the best offensive lines in football, a rejuvenated running back room led by DeAndre Swift, one of the best receiving cores in football with Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown, an elite defense that's now added rookie Jalen Carter, and then a secondary that had been one of the best in the NFL last season. Many expected this Eagles squad to be neck and neck with the 49ers at the end of the season, but right now, with how the Eagles are playing and the dominance that the 49ers are showing, these two teams are not close at all. I'm very concerned about this Eagles squad because of their secondary issues. When they make the postseason, I think the 49ers are a better team than them. Obviously, Brock Purdy's playing at an MVP caliber level, and this passing game is unreal. I think the Cowboys have shown that they are a better football team than the Eagles, and Dak Prescott's lighting it up through the air. And then 2 teams that might surprise you guys that I think are currently better than the Eagles. or could give them a real run for their money is first the Detroit Lions. Jared Goff, 5 touchdown passes against the Broncos last week. He's playing absolutely unreal right now. And if this passing game is at its true potential, the Lions could easily drop 30+ points on this Eagles defense. And the final one here that might be a surprise, the Los Angeles Rams. Looking at this 5-week stretch that this team has had, they're putting up 30 points per game with ease. A healthy Kyren Williams, a healthy Cooper Kupp, Puka Nakua's playing at an absolutely unbelievable level, and Matthew Stafford's playing like a top 10 quarterback in the league. I think the Rams would give the Eagles a real run for their money because of how dynamic this passing game is against this terrible secondary. I think the Eagles will ultimately massively disappoint in the playoffs, and they're going to have a very long offseason. The Philadelphia Eagles will not make the NFC Championship. I'm Caden Kubler, and that's my take.